Hello, I'm Dilek Tuna and you're watching A News. Now let's take a look at today's top stories. It's a critical moment for Ukraine, say European leaders calling for greater support and increased pressure on Russia to end the war. Meanwhile, Russian forces claim advances in the eastern Ukrainian city of Mirnorod, but Kyiv insists it's still in control of key areas. And what happens when you kick millions of teens off social media? Well, Australia's about to find out. Good afternoon. It's a critical moment to step up support for Ukraine. Well, that's according to European leaders who met with Ukraine's Zelensky in London. The United Front follows sharp criticism from President Trump, who said he was a little disappointed in Zelensky for not reviewing the latest US peace proposal. Here's the latest.
European leaders say now is a critical moment to increase support for Ukraine and raise pressure on Russia to move towards ending the war. Their message followed a meeting in London between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz on Monday. The leaders reviewed a new version of a peace plan drafted last week by Ukrainian and US officials.
We all support Ukraine. And we all support peace and peace negotiations to have a sustainable, a robust peace. And I think we have a lot of cards in our hands. The financing and the furniture of equipment and training programs to Ukraine, the fact that Ukraine is resisting in this war, and the fact that the Russian economy is starting to suffer, especially after our latest sanctions and the US sanctions. And now I think the main issue is a convergence between our common positions, Europeans and Ukrainians, and the US to finalize these peace negotiations and re-engage a new phase in the best possible conditions for Ukraine, for the Europeans, and for our collective security.
They agreed that more work is needed to secure long-term guarantees for Ukraine, especially as the United States pushes Kyiv to reach a faster deal with Russia. Zelensky said the most anti-Ukrainian elements from the initial November proposal had been removed, but he admitted that concerns over possible territorial concessions remain unresolved.
Thank you. Things which are very important for today, I think unity between Europe and Ukraine, and also unity between Europe, Ukraine and the United States. There are some things which we can't manage without Americans, things which we can't manage without Europe, and that's why we need to make some important decisions.
Zelensky travelled on to Brussels to brief NATO officials and said Ukraine would present a revised plan to Washington on Tuesday. European governments continue to support a step-by-step process linked to security guarantees and steady military aid, while US politics add pressure for a faster deal. Moscow says it is open to talks, but Ukraine and its allies argue Russia is stalling to secure its gains.
Meanwhile, Russia says its forces are pushing forward across the entire front, claiming new gains around the embattled town of Mirnorod. At a field briefing, Russian General Valery Gerasimov told commanders that President Vladimir Putin has ordered the defeat of Ukrainian units said to be encircled there. Moscow claims control of more than a third of the town's buildings and insists neighbouring Pokrovsk has already fallen. Kyiv denies this, saying its troops still hold parts of both areas and are inflicting heavy losses for what it calls limited Russian advances. And France is set to hold a crunch parliamentary vote on the government's budget for 2026. This includes a suspension of President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform, which would raise the legal retirement age from 62 to 64. The lower house will vote on the social security bill forming the first half of the budget. Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu agreed to freeze pension reform to gather support from the socialists. However, this decision faces rebellion from Lecornu's own supporters. If the measure fails, Lecornu's government will be weakened ahead of the main budget, which must pass by December the 23rd. Over in northern Japan, at least 30 people were injured after a powerful 7.5 magnitude earthquake damaged buildings and infrastructure on Monday. An earlier tsunami warning was lifted this morning after around 90,000 residents evacuated from their homes.
At least 30 people have been injured after a magnitude 7.5 earthquake struck northeastern Japan on Monday night. Around 90,000 residents were forced to evacuate after the quake hit off the coast of Aomori Prefecture, prompting tsunami warnings that have since been lifted. Authorities say they are still assessing the damage and warn that the risk of a subsequent major earthquake has increased.
Regarding the earthquake, which struck off the east of Aomori Prefecture, we have so far received reports of 30 injuries and 1 residential fire. We are continuing efforts to release information on the relevant damage. In addition, due to this earthquake, it has been assessed that the likelihood of a large-scale earthquake occurring in the region from Hokkaido and off the Sanriku coast has become consistently elevated, and an advisory notice for heightened caution has been issued for the Hokkaido and Sanriku areas.
The government has set up a response office in the Prime Minister's Crisis Management Centre and convened an emergency team. Some railway services have been suspended while others are running with delays. Japan, one of the world's most earthquake-prone countries, sits on the ring of fire and experiences about 1,500 tremors each year. After the quake, authorities issued an advisory from Hokkaido down to Chiba Prefecture, urging residents to remain on alert for a potentially powerful follow-up earthquake within the week.
The United Nations is urging immediate de-escalation between Thailand and Cambodia. It's after a deadly clash broke out on Monday, which killed and injured dozens from both countries, despite ceasefire agreements signed in October.
The United Nations is urging Thailand and Cambodia to do whatever they can to de-escalate and return to the ceasefire deal agreed in October. Cambodia's defence ministry accused Thailand of brutal and unlawful actions, saying 9 civilians were killed since Monday and 20 seriously injured. Thai officials said 3 soldiers had died in the fighting and 29 people had been injured. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres is very concerned by the escalation, according to his spokesperson, Stefan Dujarric.
We've seen the reports of airstrikes and mobilization of heavy equipment around the border. It's important that both Thailand and Cambodia do whatever they can to de-escalate and to return to the framework that was signed in Kuala Lumpur just a few months ago on October 26. They need to use that mechanism to engage in dialogue and find ways again to lower the tension. And we, of course, stand ready to support all efforts at promoting peace, stability, and developments in the region.
Both sides accuse each other of violating the ceasefire. Mali Soche-Ata, spokesperson for Cambodia's Ministry of National Defence, calls on the international community to condemn the violation.
Faced with attacks from Thailand, the Cambodian army still did not retaliate. They respected the ceasefire, the joint ceasefire agreement between Cambodia and Thailand, and other principal agreements between the 2 countries following the peaceful solution mechanism and through the international laws.
Thailand, however, says it acted after one of its soldiers was killed in an exchange of fire. A Thai military spokesman confirms that Air Force jets bombed Cambodian military positions and says 8 Thai soldiers are wounded as fighting intensified early in the morning. Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul says his country does not want violence, but warns that Bangkok will not accept any threat to its sovereignty. He says the government will take appropriate measures in response.
Thailand never wants to see violence. We insist that Thailand has never initiated the clashes or encroached into their land whatsoever. But Thailand will not stand for its sovereignty being violated and will proceed with appropriate measures, caution, and adhere to peace, stability, and uphold humanitarian aspects.
I wish to invite Excellency.
Malaysia urges both sides to show restraint. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim warns that renewed conflict risks undoing the work of the ceasefire he helped broker in October alongside US President Donald Trump. The border dispute led to a 5-day conflict in July before the ceasefire agreement was signed in Kuala Lumpur. Thousands of civilians living along the Thai-Cambodia border are now fleeing for safety, raising fears of a deeper regional crisis.
US President Donald Trump says the United States will allow NVIDIA to export its artificial intelligence chips to China, with Washington collecting a 25% fee on each chip. The move appears to end a long-running debate over whether US chip makers should maintain their global lead by continuing to sell to China or restrict access. Trump confirmed the details are being finalised and that the same deal would apply to other AI chip makers. US President Donald Trump said that neither Netflix nor Paramount are great friends of his on Monday after both companies bid for a takeover of Warner Brothers Discovery. Paramount launched an offer worth over $108 billion. The company said its proposal offers a superior and more certain path to completion. The move came after Netflix announced a deal to buy Warner Brothers studio and streaming assets for a mix of cash and stock, valued at $72 billion. Warner Brothers said it would review the new offer, but was not changing its recommendation at this stage.
I know the companies very well. I know what they're doing, but I have to see what percentage of market they have. We have to see the Netflix percentage of market, Paramount, the percentage of market. I mean, none of them are particularly great friends of mine. You know, I want to do what's right. It's so very important to do what's right.
From tomorrow, Australia will bar under-16s from major social media platforms, the first country to set a minimum legal age for access. The step has drawn criticism from those who argue it won't be enough to shield young people from harmful content.
Have you guys tried Hazel?
Australia is set to become the first country to introduce a minimum legal age for social media on Wednesday. 10 major platforms such as Instagram, TikTok and YouTube will be required to block more than 1 million accounts from midnight or face fines of up to $33 million, a law criticised by tech giants and free speech advocates but welcomed by parents and child safety groups. Meanwhile, an Australian hospital is offering the country's first treatment programme for gaming and screen addiction. Dr. Daniela Vecchio, head of the Gaming Disorder Clinic at Fiona Stanley Hospital, says she began the clinic after seeing a surge in young patients presenting severe screen-related disorders.
So we started seeing an increased number of young people in the hospital, in the emergency department, who were harmed. So they were isolated at home. They had become very much reclusive. Some of them had assaulted their parents. When limits were posed, children who were refusing to go to school, we had the families asking for help. Devastated families were struggling.
The clinic has treated more than 350 patients since its 2022 pilot phase, with its youngest patient aged 5. Former patients say the support helped them break their dependency on gaming.
It sort of showed me that I didn't need to be so dependent on video games. I was very afraid to step away from video games. I was very afraid to socialize in the real world. And through the church and the video game clinic, I sort of observed in myself that I didn't really need to hide behind the screen anymore for comfort.
Critics argue the narrow scope of the ban limits its effectiveness, noting that dating websites, gaming platforms and artificial intelligence chatbots are exempt. Australia's move has drawn international attention, with Denmark announcing plans to ban social media for under 15-year-olds, and Norway says it's considering similar rules.
A spacecraft carrying a NASA astronaut and 2 Russian cosmonauts has safely returned to Earth. Russia's space agency released footage showing them being helped out of the capsule and undergoing routine medical checks after landing near the Kazakh city of Zhezkazgan. The crew was coming back from an 8-month mission aboard the International Space Station.
Сергей Николаевич, как герой России, космонавт Роскосмоса.
We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll discuss Europe's unified message of support for Ukraine and the growing divisions over how the war should end. Stay with us.
If you had to repeat this path, would you do it?
I don't know.
A journey marked not by maps, but by the ones we carry.
Nein. Nein.
This story stretches across continents, empires, and religions. From Germany to Caucasus.
Das ist eine schwere Frage. Du heute nicht.
Story of success, friendship, deportations, and disappearances.
Ночью пришли, арестовали моего дядю, и больше о нем мы ничего не знаем.
A community that rose and almost disappeared.
Его расстреляли в 1937 году. Был расстрелян как немецкий шпион.
This is a story of a migration that shouldn't have survived.
Da gibt's eine schöne Geschichte.
Welcome back to A News. Now back to our top story today. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is on a tour in Europe, talking directly with EU leaders to shore up support. Joining me now to unpack is Andriy Ordinovich. He's a retired colonel from the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Colonel, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me once more time.
Now, Zelensky's meetings in London were described as a strong display of European unity. How substantive was the support offered beyond the symbolic optics?
As for now, not much information is on the mass media, but what we understood from the meeting and the environment around the meeting, and as well as feeling between all 4 leaders of European countries and Ukraine, that really it was a unity between Ukraine and Europe. Second, it was a confirmation that joint diplomatic effort should be applied in the resolution of this war, Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, with the engagement of the primary engagement of the United States. It also have been discussed about the security guarantee of Ukraine, because it is very important that what is going to be after the ceasefire or peace deal between Ukraine and Russia with support of international community, what type of security guarantee. I believe it was also touched very much the Ukrainian sovereignty and territorial integrity, because using the international expert on it, like Timmy Snyder, who mentioned that the peace deal without victims could not last very long. It also mentioned that talk about Ukraine, about the peace deal, also is a wrong policy, because it is appeasement, but not a real, lasting, just and durable peace. It also been discussed during this meeting, I believe it, somehow to support our Ukrainian economy and Ukrainian military to be resilient, to be strong and defend our country, because for the last 3 years, Russia has been able only to proceed in the deep of Ukraine 150 kilometers, but it is already first year of the war. Any comparison with a major conflict in 20th century is not comparable.
And does this London meeting suggest Europe wants to play a more active role in shaping the endgame rather than simply reacting to the US proposal?
It would be right, because Ukraine is a geographic center of Europe. Ukrainian matters is also European matters, and I believe that the European countries and European leaders should play more crucial role in engaging with United States and bring eventual peace to Ukrainian soil, because this war is not started by Ukraine. This was started by aggression of Russia, and the war is going on the European continent. And to have war somewhere in any part of Europe, it means that we could not say the European continent living in peace and stability. They have to play. And I hope that around the issue of security guarantee, around the issue of security assistance, European nation would be step forward. And NATO initiative, so-called Pearl, with mainly of economical and financial efforts of European nations to help Ukraine to buy American weapons in order to defend, in order to increase our defensive potential and reduce Russian offensive potential, as well as boost our moral and be more effective on the battlefield. I do believe that European leaders, European countries should be united around Ukraine, because Ukraine is going to be only first but not last step toward the imperialistic foreign policy of Russian Federation.
Okay, Colonel, just some very recent news coming out of Zelensky's European tour. He met with Pope Leo XIV ahead of talks with Meloni in Italy. And one of the main points that stands out there is that the Pope said he was very much focused on wanting to help out with rescuing the Ukrainian children from Russia. This was just one of the points that stands out to me. Do you see this kind of assistance or move materializing anytime soon? And what could they do to support this?
During any negotiation on different level, from the top level on presidential, president or premier minister, as well as the national security advisors, one of the issues was staying behind. It is a returning of Ukrainian kids, which been abducted by Russian and put it in some area of Russian Federation. It is also the exchanging prisoners of war based on principle all to all. It is another aspect when Italy, as a democratical European country, could focus on it, as well as Vatican could pay attention to it, because it is purely humanitarian efforts. But our president trying to visit and to be engaged with the primary power of European Union and Europe in order to have them on the board, in order to bring them the more fresh information based on our bilateral relation and communication with the United States. And as you know, Rome is playing a very important role from the political perspective and diplomatical perspective. They have already give a floor for the talking about the reconstruction and rebuilding Ukraine after the World War II. And we expecting another Rome Recovery Conference when with major roles and place of the country, which would like to help Ukraine to recover it, not only from the European continents, but much broader Far East country like Japan, like South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and other, India, China, and who could be useful for Ukraine to recovery. Also, visiting Rome, it is giving some kind of a morale boost, because we have a big Ukrainian population in Italy who are living already for a while, and they will energize the community there to support Ukraine. And more important also to continue the positive development of Italian Ministry of Defense to help us with some critical niche of capability, and Italy and France are producing very important, very strong long-range air defense system, which are very, very much needed for Ukraine against aeroballistic missiles.
Okay, and Colonel, Trump said he's a little disappointed that Zelensky didn't read the US proposed peace proposal. What's your analysis of a US political figure publicly pressuring a wartime leader in this way?
I believe the President Trump has touched the most difficult question of this war of aggression. Because we are talking about the not territories which are temporarily occupied by Russian forces, but we are talking about the people, Ukrainians with Ukrainian citizenship, but some of them already forced to take a Russian citizenship. But we are talking about people who used to live on the soil, which been part of Ukraine, the land, under some kind of historical period with Russian Empire, but already 30 years they used to live in a Ukrainian independent state and been working for Ukraine. Maybe it is a key and most difficult issue, but I believe that if we will not preserve the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, we are going to have a more difficult time on the European continent. Maybe not only European continent, but this kind of flashing point could spread to other areas. As we see, it is very difficult to make a real peace. But I believe that the unity of efforts from the great powers could help to put a realistic and durable peace, more important, just peace, after the World War II, after the Helsinki Agreement, after the number of international agreements which have been signed between Ukraine and Russia, and eventually to come up to the common understanding of peaceful settlement and peaceful coexist of the territory, because no Russia, no Ukraine would be as separated from a geographical point of view.
Okay, one last question, Colonel. The European leaders reaffirmed support for Kyiv, yet their views on peace terms do appear to diverge. Are we seeing the start of a fractured European position on how the war should end?
I believe they do have the common vision on it, because appeasement by the foreign territory for any country in Europe, it is not a good way to go. And second, they also probably would like to balance between their position and United States position. It is most critical to get common understanding and get to the point. And they're also looking for the different probably paths of negotiation. You remembered the recent visit of President Macron to China. The issue of Ukraine was also discussed, and everything depends on the building international partnership. And I believe that our success is lying down on the simple triangle. First and foremost, to support Ukraine economically, financially, helping Ukraine to recover economy, because economy could give a better moral and physical strength to our military. Second bullet, it is our strong Ukrainian military could be very strategic deterrence to Russia. And third one, it is a partnership. Without partnership, no single country in Europe could not resist against such aggression like Russian war of aggression against Ukraine.
Colonel, thank you so much for joining us on the program. We appreciate your insight.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me once more time.
After the break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Stay with us. Welcome back to A News. Now we'll take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban met in Istanbul on Monday. The leaders reaffirmed Turkey's key role in supplying Russian gas to Hungary and launched new joint research projects. Let's take a look at their meeting in more detail.
President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban met in Istanbul for high-level talks that produced new commitments on energy, trade, defence cooperation and joint scientific initiatives. The meeting also reaffirmed Turkey's pivotal role in ensuring uninterrupted Russian natural gas supplies to Hungary. At a joint news conference, Orban said Hungary had already received 7.5 billion cubic meters of Russian gas this year via the Turk Stream pipeline.
Today I agreed with Mr. President that you, the Turks, will ensure the route by which we can get it from Russia to Hungary. On behalf of Hungary, I would like to thank the President for guaranteeing this route for us. Think of Nord Stream. This is the guarantee. This is a serious matter. It may indeed be necessary. Just this year alone, we brought 7.5 billion cubic meters of gas to Hungary through you so far.
We are close to reaching the $6 billion trade volume target that Prime Minister Orban and I set. Considering the strong trade potential between us, we are now working toward a trade volume target of $10 billion. Taking into account the strong trade potential between our countries, we are progressing toward achieving this target. Given Turkey's current security conditions, we are evaluating projects that include joint production and will elevate our defense industry cooperation to even higher levels. Energy and transportation, which we consider to be of strategic importance, are also among the prominent areas of discussion between us. We declare 2025 as the Turkey-Hungary Year of Science and Innovation.
Erdogan described the Turkey-Hungary energy corridor as strategically indispensable, stressing that Ankara would continue facilitating the transit of Russian oil and gas to Hungary amid sanctions and regional pressures. The leaders signed agreements spanning defense, transportation, education, culture and technology. Defense cooperation featured prominently, with both leaders emphasizing plans for joint production initiatives aimed at bolstering regional and European security.
Slovakia and Azerbaijan are boosting their partnership, focusing on energy, trade and technology collaboration. Discussions on the potential for joint ventures are high on the agenda as the President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, continues his trip to Bratislava.
Slovakia views Azerbaijan as a partner of strategic importance in the region in which it is located. Bilateral trade is increasing. There is significant growth and some potential remains untapped. President of Slovakia, Peter Pellegrini, said this during joint press conference with his Azerbaijani counterpart, Ilham Aliyev. Slovakian leader also added that Bratislava is also looking forward to cooperate with Baku in joint ventures, joint companies and technology transfer.
Azerbaijan can play a leading role for Slovakia. We are talking about diversifying our energy supplies. Of course, we recognise that Azerbaijan can be a long-term strategic partner for us. Our delegations will continue negotiations so that this becomes an agreement acceptable for Slovakia and allows us to benefit from Azerbaijan's resources.
Last year, Azerbaijani gas was supplied to Slovakia for the first time, and Azerbaijan can provide Slovakia with any volume of energy resources it may need. That was according to President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev.
Azərbaycan isə öz xarici siyasət prioritetlərini
Azerbaijan has long defined its foreign policy priorities. At the same time, we are currently playing the role of a bridge between East and West. The investments we have made in infrastructure, connectivity, and the transport sector have enabled Azerbaijan to become an important component of the East-West transport corridor. We are heavily involved in the Middle Corridor project, the most reliable and safest route connecting Central Asia with Europe passes through the territory of Azerbaijan.
President Aliyev also emphasised that since Slovakia and Azerbaijan signed their joint declaration on strategic partnership last year, cooperation between the two countries has become very active across all fields.
Kazakhstan is rerouting part of its oil exports, sending crude from the Kaskahan field directly to China for the first time. The move comes as the Caspian Pipeline Consortium operates at reduced capacity, limiting the country's traditional export routes. Analysts say this marks a significant shift in Kazakhstan's strategy to secure alternative pathways for its oil. Fariza Kalimurzina has more from Almaty.
Kazakhstan is redirecting part of its oil flows as it sends crude from the Kashagan field to China for the first time. The shift comes at a moment when the Caspian Pipeline Consortium is operating with reduced capacity and is able to load oil through only one working terminal point, which limits the country's traditional export options. Reuters reports that 50,000 tons of crude are scheduled to reach China in December. This shipment will mark the first direct delivery from Kashagan through the Atasu to Alashanko route. And according to sources familiar with the plan, 30,000 tons are expected to be supplied by CNPC and another 20,000 tons by Japan's INPEX. Both companies are members of the NAS Caspian operating company that develops the field. While none of the companies has issued official comments, Kazakhstan's Ministry of Energy has noted that the country is now intensifying efforts to secure additional routes for exporting Caspian oil. The Atasu-Alashanko pipeline connects Kazakhstan with China's Xinjiang region and is normally used for transporting crude from other fields. At the moment, it carries about 85,000 tons of oil each month. The shift in supply routes follows a Ukrainian drone attack on 29th of November. The strike damaged one of 3 offshore loading units at the CPC terminal in Novorossiysk, while another unit was undergoing maintenance. As a result, the consortium, which provides about 1% of global oil supply, is operating with reduced capacity. The CPC route is critical for Kazakhstan because more than 80% of the country's oil exports rely on this corridor, and Kazakhstan owns a 19% stake in the consortium. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A-News.
In northern Afghanistan, a significant cultural restoration project is now underway in Balkh province. The Turkish Cooperation Coordination Agency, known as TICA, has begun work on rebuilding and restoring the historic lodge of the father of Maulana Jaluluddin Balkhi, one of the region's most revered spiritual figures. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
At the governor's office in Mazar-e-Sharif, senior Turkish officials sat down with Balkh Governor Muhammad Yusuf Wafa to confirm the start of construction on the centuries-old lodge. TIKA's Deputy Director General, Ümit Yorulmaz, said the project marks another step in Turkey's long-standing development partnership with Afghanistan. According to TIKA, more than 1,700 projects have been carried out across Afghanistan in education, health, culture, agriculture, and humanitarian support. Over 700 of these have been completed in the country's northern provinces alone. Yorulmaz confirmed that along with restoring the lodge, 2 new mosques, one for men, one for women, will also be built on the site. Governor Wafat thanked Turkey for what he called its brotherly cooperation, saying the two nations share deep cultural and spiritual ties. He described Maulana Jalaluddin Balkhi, known globally as Rumi, as a common heritage of the Islamic world. Restoring his father's lodge, he said, helps preserve that shared legacy. The governor also urged further investment in water supply projects, hospitals, roads, mosques, and assistance for returning refugees in Balkh province. With the addition of the 2 new mosques, the site is expected to become an important cultural landmark once again. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
Now we'll take a short break, and when we return we'll discuss the outcomes of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's visit to Turkey. Stay with us.
And welcome to Primetime. What a show we've got lined up for you. In a complex world, clarity is power. Two hours live, diplomacy dissected in a spin-free environment. That's Prime Time with me, Guy Schoen, weekdays on A News.
Welcome back to A News. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has hosted Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban for high-level talks in Istanbul, where the two leaders agreed to significantly expand cooperation across multiple sectors, including energy, transport and defence. A series of agreements were signed, strengthening the legal and institutional framework of their partnership. Joining me now to discuss is Dr. Zoltan Egereshi. He's a political analyst from Budapest, Hungary. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon.
Now, Doctor, what does this meeting between Erdogan and Orban tell us about the current track of Turkey-Hungary relations?
So the two countries' relations, let's say, are excellent, or they entered in a new golden age. And this meeting is part of that. It was a high-level strategic cooperation council meeting, which I would say a regular meeting for the government members from both sides. This cooperation started in late 2013, and since that date or that year, every year there is high-level meeting when around a dozen of ministers from Turkey, the Turkish side and from the Hungarian side meet and discuss the ongoing issues, and they also outline the upcoming task for new strategies. And within this framework, we had this really prestigious meeting in Istanbul at the Dolmabahce Palace. And during this meeting, 16 agreements were signed between the two countries, having a wide range of variety, so from cultural and innovation, technological cooperation to energy and also military cooperation, which is very important for Hungary, and also outlining the current geopolitical challenges and common issues for both leaders.
Okay, and can you tell us about the importance of the creation of a joint planning group? Does it represent a more formal long-term alignment, perhaps, between the two countries?
Yeah, this is a brand new development for the relation between the two countries. This consultation mechanism means a new group, means joint meetings between the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Defense, and chief advisors in these fields, as well as military or key military companies from both countries. And during these meetings, these leaders and advisors will look at the ongoing geopolitical and especially security challenges stemming from the war in Ukraine, throughout security, energy security issues, and general frameworks, especially refugees and illegal immigration, which is a key problem for both countries. So during the upcoming years, we will see new meetings between these sectoral partners in the case of the two countries.
Okay, and Hakan Fidan highlighted foreign policy, security and defence industry cooperation. What are the most likely areas where Turkey and Hungary can deepen military or technological collaboration?
I think we will see, as we already started to see, ameliorating military cooperation. Hungary has opened to purchase Turkish military products and also for joint production here in Hungary. One kind of armored vehicles are under process. It's called in Hungarian Gidran. And probably in the other fields, especially drone industry, will be a common field in joint cooperation in the upcoming future. So I would say in the Korean stage that there are many negotiations, with much possibility for a positive outcome. And for the upcoming years, we will see rising military cooperation between the countries beyond the already existing one, because military issues and military cooperation in the current geopolitical situation, especially in the Black Sea region, is a common problem for both countries. And Hungary started to invest much more in the Hungarian defense industry in line with the NATO requirements, and the Turkish military companies are really developed in this sector, so we can see a rising cooperation between the two sectors.
Okay, and could this intensified cooperation create friction within the European Union, especially given Orban's independent foreign policy stance and Turkey's complex relationship with Brussels?
I do not see or do not expect a major rupture or high criticism from the part of Brussels concerning this issue. Let's stay at the military cooperation. Many European countries indicated their openness to the Turkish companies, military companies in that field, especially in the current change of the United States policy vis-à-vis the European Union or Europe itself. So I do not see a big exception in that case. I would rather highlight that Hungary is just in time. And also in line with that, due to the good Turkish relations and with other special and relatively good relations with other Turkic states, Hungary joined as an observer member to the Organization of Turkic States in 2018, and since that, as a major or other framework, gives us opportunity for the Hungarian government to discuss and make different deals with different Turkic governments from Azerbaijan, Turkey, and so on. And within this respect, Hungary is diversifying its foreign political leverage, and I would say it's a relatively big success. And I do not see a major obstacle from the European Union side of that.
Okay, and what's your analysis where Ankara is securing Russian gas for Budapest while the rest of EU is trying to wean off it more and more?
Still, in case of Hungary, Russian gas is really important, vital. Hungary is a landlocked country and still needs time to develop its alternative. And if we just look at the map and to the gas pipeline, Hungary is getting more than 80% of its gas via the so-called Turkic Stream, so coming from Russia via Turkey and the Balkan countries, which is really a key issue. That's why during this meeting, energy security was also a really major issue, and especially energy security. I mean the existence and the safeguarding of the pipelines passing the Black Sea and via Turkey towards the Balkan. And of course, on the longer run, as European Union tries to turn its back to any kind of Russian support, it may cause problems, but still now Hungary is doing its best in order to make this agreement viable. And in this case, Turkey is a really key partner for Hungary because without the Turkic stream, Hungary would face really big troubles, and especially it would have faced really big troubles during the previous years.
Okay, and Doctor, my last question to you. What does Hungary gain strategically from closer alignment with Turkey, especially at a time when EU unity is under pressure?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation right now, but Hungarian foreign policy or Hungarian government sees Turkey as a key country in terms of security. Turkey as a country in the intersection of Europe and Asia has a major impact on Hungary's security. I mean, I have already talked about energy and military cooperation, but also during the 2015-16 migrant crisis, Hungarian society and the Hungarian government could see that Turkey is a key issue. Everything happens in the Middle East and Northern Africa in that sense will somehow affect the Balkans and Central Europe. And in order to handle this situation, Turkey is a really key country. So since 2016, Hungarian government, one of the strongest and one of the loudest supporter of the Turkey and the Turkish government, and I would say the Turkish stability, which of course is not just important for Hungary itself, but generally for the region. And this kind of cooperation will cement this kind of vision. And also, on the other hand, this common cooperation will open the way for the trade agreements and investment opportunities. Turkish companies are really active here in Hungary in different sectors, and also Hungarian companies are entering the Turkish market, and our trade is booming. For example, during this very meeting, the leaders agreed that as they already approach the previously signed goal of $6 billion US dollar trade, right now they decided to go further for the trade volume, and hopefully in the upcoming years, due to the rising trade cooperation, energy cooperation, this aim will be achieved.
Okay, Doctor, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you so much.
And you're up to date with world news for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.